Alright guys, I've got a middle of the night bonus upload to share with you before we jump into it. A couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership are in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They all were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go, and yes, folks, they do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into this middle of the night bonus upload, shall we? So I've talked a lot about media and government, local, state and federal cover-ups. And tonight's upload is going to be the project that was created to ensure that these cover-ups were successful, or so they hoped to be successful. Project Mockingbird, the CIA's media manipulation. The CIA's secret activities, covert missions, and connections of control are all done under pretense and protection of national security, with no accountability whatsoever, at least in their minds. Considering the public is held accountable for everything we say, think, do, there is something seriously wrong with the picture. The CIA is the president's secret army, who have been and continue to be conveniently above the law, with unlimited power and authority to conduct a reign of terror around the globe. The old boy network of socializing, talking shop, and tapping each other for favors outside the halls of government made it inevitable that the CIA and corporate America would become allies. Thus, the systematic infiltration and takeover of the media. Under the guise of American objectives and lack of congressional oversight, the CIA accomplished their exploits by using every trick in their book, and they know quite a few, that they actually teach in the notorious School of Americas, nicknamed the School of Dictators and the School of Assassins by critics. The Association of Responsible Dissent eliminates that 6 million people have died by 1987 as the result of the CIA covert operations, called an American Holocaust by former State Department official William Blum. In 1948, the CIA recreated its Covert Action Wing, calling the Office of Policy Coordination with Wall Street lawyer Frank Wisner as the first director. Another early elitist who served as director of the CIA from 53 to 61 was Alan Dulles, a senior partner at the Wall Street firm of Sullivan and Cromwell, which represented the Rockefeller Empire and other trusts, corporations, and cartels. Starting in the early days of the Cold War, the late 40s, the CIA began a secret project called Operation Mockingbird, with the intent of buying influence behind the scenes of major media outlets and putting reporters on the CIA payroll, which has proven to be a stunning ongoing success. The CIA's effort to recruit American news organizations and journalists to become spies and disseminators of propaganda was headed by Frank Wisner, Alan Dulles, Richard Helms, and Philip Graham, publisher of the Washington Post. Wisner had taken Graham under his wing to direct the program, codenamed Operation Mockingbird, and both have presumably committed suicide. Media assets will eventually include ABC, NBC, CBS, Time, Newsweek, Associated Press, United Press International, Reuters, Hearst Newspaper, Scripps Howard, Copley News Service, etc., and 400 journalists plus who have secretly carried out assignments according to documents on file at the CIA headquarters, from intelligence gathering to serving as go-betweens. The CIA had infiltrated the nation's businesses, media, and universities with tens of thousands of on-call operatives by the 50s. CIA Director Dulles had staffed the CIA almost exclusively with Ivy League grads, especially from Yale, with figures like George Herbert Walker Bush from the Skull and Crossbones Society. Many Americans still insist or persist in believing that we have free press, while getting most of their news from state-controlled television, under the misconception that reporters are meant to serve the public. Reporters are paid employees that serve the media owners, who usually cower when challenged by advertisers or major government figures. Robert Perry reported the first breaking stories about Iran-Contra for Associated Press that were largely ignored by the press and Congress. Then, moving to Newsweek, he witnessed a retraction of a true story for political reasons. In Fooling America, a talk by Robert Perry, he has said, "The people who succeeded and did well were those who did not stand up, who didn't write the big stories, who looked the other way when history was happening in front of them, and went along, either consciously or just by cowardness, with the deception of the American people." Major networks are primarily controlled by giant corporations that are obliged by law to put the profits of their investors ahead of all of the considerations, which are often in conflict with the practice of responsible journalism. There are around 50 corporations a couple of decades ago, which were considered monopolistic by many, and yet today these companies have become larger and fewer in number as the biggest ones absorb their rivals. Concentration of ownership and power reduces the diversity of media voices as news falls into the hands of large conglomerates with holdings in many industries that interferes in news gathering because of conflicts of interest. Mockingbird was an immense financial undertaking with funds flowing from the CIA, largely through the Congress for Cultural Freedom, CCF, founded by Tom Braden and Patrick Buchanan on CNN's Crossfire. Media corporations share members of the board of directors with a variety of other large corporations, including banks, investment companies, oil companies, healthcare, pharmaceutical, tech companies. Until the 80s, media systems were generally domestically owned, regulated, and national in scope. However, pressure from the IMF, World Bank, and United States government to deregulate and privatize the media communication and new technology resulted in a global commercial media system dominated by a small number of super powerful transnational media corporations, mostly United States-based, working to advance the cause of the global markets and the CIA's agenda. The first tier of the 9 giant firms that dominate the world are Time Warner, AOL, Disney, ABC, Bertelsmann, Viacom, CBS, Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation, Fox, General Electric, NBC, Sony, Universal, Seagram, Telecommunications Incorporated, or TCI, and AT&T. This is just the head of the octopus, which has its second and third tier tentacles working together in unison, or a feigned division. This would include the Washington Post / Newsweek, the New York Times / Weekly Standard, Tribune Company, U.S. News, Gannett / USA Today, Dow Jones / Wall Street Journal, Washington Times, Knight Ridder, etc. A good site to visit for more information is Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, a public interest media watchdog group at www.fair.org/index.html or www.fair.org/mediafiles/index.html, www.fair.org/extra/9711/GMG.html. Media propaganda tactics include blackouts, misdirections, expert opinions to echo the establishment line, smears, defining popular opinion, mass entertainment distractions, and Hobson's choice. The media presents the so-called conservative and liberal positions. Who controls the media? The subversion of the free press by the CIA, the depraved spies and Mongols of the CIA's Operation Mockingbird, the CIA, America's premier international terrorist organization. Virtual Government CIA Mind Control Operations in America by Alex Constantine are an excellent source of information on this topic. David Guyette has written books and many articles, including one entitled Subverting the Media. Then there are two articles called The Timeline of the CIA Atrocities and The Origins of Overclass by Steve Kangas that are very informative, although from a more liberal perspective. Steve will not be writing any more articles as he is no longer with us, having unfortunately met his untimely death that was apparently from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But if you read about him on his webpage that is still available, you will see that he did not seem like the person who was suffering from deep depression. In his memory, please take the time to read what he wrote at www.corpus, spelled KORPIOS.org/resurgent/CIA timeline .html and www.corpus.org resurgent index.html. CNN aired the Valley of Death in June of 1998, and Time magazine, both owned by Time Warner, ran a story about a secret mission called Operation Tailwind and the activities of SOG, Studies and Observation Group, a secret elite commando unit of the Army Special Forces that used lethal nerve gas sarin on a mission to Laos designed to kill American defectors. Suddenly, the network was awash in denial, and the story was hushed up as usual. Acknowledged use of this gas coming at a time when the United States government was trying to get Saddam to comply with weapon inspections was an embarrassment, to say the least. What a hypocrisy, having actually used weapons on our own troops, then complaining and accusing Saddam Hussein of potentially stored similar weapons, of which some were manufactured in and supplied by the United States. The broadcast was prepared after an exhaustive research and rooted in considerable supportive data. To decide for yourself what the truth is, read Floyd Abrams' report on CNN site at www.cnn.com US/9807/02/tailwind.findings/index.html. Journalists Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward broke the stories of Watergate in the late 70s in the Washington Post, having gained access to what the CIA was trying to keep from Congress about this program, using journalists at home and abroad in deliberate propaganda campaigns. It was later revealed that Woodward was a naval intelligence briefer to the White House and knew many insiders, including General Alexander Haig. A high-leveled source told Bernstein one journalist is worth 20 agents. CFR Katharine Graham, in a 1988 speech gave to the senior CIA employees at the agency headquarters, said, "We live in a dirty and dangerous world. There are some things that the general public does not need to know and shouldn't. I believe democracy flourishes when the government can take legitimate steps to keep its secrets and when the press can decide whether to print what it knows. Maybe that's another reason why folks get the impression that a suspicious agenda lurks behind the headlines. 25 Ways to Suppress the Truth, Rules of Disinformation, and 8 Traits of the Disinformationalist at www.proparanoid.com/truth.html sums it up very well. Ralph McGee was a CIA agent for 25 years, mainly in Southeast Asia, where he witnessed bombing and napalming of villages, which caused him to examine closely what the CIA was really about. He has written about Vietnam's Phoenix program, www.vwip.org/articles/m/McGee-Ralph_Vietnam's Phoenix program, html. And after a long battle with CIA censors, he published the book Deadly Deceits in 1983. Ralph has been harassed by the CIA and FBI involving bodily injury, and his CIA base website was shut down in the spring of 2000. He copied some reports that can be found at serendipity.magnet.ch/CIA/CIA base_report_1.htm and 2.htm. serendipity.magnet.ch/CIA/death_squads.htm. www.thirdworldtraveler.com/CIA/deadly_deceits.html. He concluded that the CIA is not now, nor has it ever been, a central intelligence agency, but rather a covert action arm of the president's foreign policy advisors, of which disinformation is a large part of its responsibility, and the American people are its prime targets of its lies. One of the primary reasons JFK was assassinated had to do with the fact that he dared to interfere in a framework of power. Kennedy was intent on exercising his elected powers and not allowing them to be usurped by the power-crazed individuals in the intelligence community threatened to splinter the CIA in 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the wind. There were 4 things that filled the CIA with rage and sealed his fate. JFK fired Alan Dulles, who was in process of funding a panel to investigate the CIA's numerous crimes, put a damper on the breadth and scope of the CIA, and limited their ability to act under the National Security Memorandum 55. There is such an overwhelming amount of information pertaining to the CIA that it is impossible to cover it in one book, much less an article. The media is not only influenced by the CIA, but the media is the CIA. Many Americans think of their supposedly free press as a watchdog on the government, mainly because the press itself shamelessly promotes that myth. one of the first tenets for the control of the population is to control all sources of information the population receives. And mostly because of a pervasive CIA and Operation Mockingbird, the mainstream American press is controlled multinational corporate/government megaphone. They are up to their eyeballs in dirty deeds, and there will never be an end to the corruption that prevails unless the CIA is abolished. Otherwise, the CIA will just keep using their dirty tricks. Their tricks of propaganda, stuffed ballot boxes, purchased elections, extortion, blackmail, drug trafficking, sex intrigue, kidnapping, beating, torture, intimidation, economic sabotage, false stories about opponents in the local media, infiltration and disruption of opposing political parties, demolition and evacuation procedures, death squads, and politically motivated assassinations. The CIA is the epitome of organized crime run amok. And that right there, my friends, is why we don't have media coverage on Dogman and Sasquatch and cryptid/UFO/whatever. That's why. Because they don't want us to know. They don't care to let us know. Is that fair? No. We're adults. I mean, probably the majority of the population of America is probably smarter than half the CIA agents anyway. Think about it. I mean, if you've ever watched a television show or a news channel where they're interviewing a CIA agent, they really don't seem too intelligent to me. All right, folks, a very informative bonus upload to fall asleep to or to wake up to, whichever. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. Your support is what makes this channel honestly so special and what continues to make the channel grow and go. You guys are the reason this channel has succeeded in where we are at right now. The community that you guys have created in the comment section is just amazing. The amount of respect and courtesy is awesome. Every once in a while, a negative comment slides in, but you guys handle it. You guys handle it with respect and courtesy. And they could be pretty rude sometimes, and that's awesome. You guys really are awesome, so thank you. And you guys share the most amazing info with me as well. Guys, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real. They're out there. They're dangerous. If you share this info with someone you love or care about, it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop pushing back. Never stop asking questions. And God bless you all.